Couple of notes before we get going. As far as questions go, just throw up your hand if anything pops in your mind, and I'll get to you right away. And then let's see, where's I going with that? So I'll just get into the roadmap here of what we'll be doing. So I'm gonna cover kind of just some housekeeping things on the front end. And so that's going to entail things like we'll go over IDing and overconsumption and core limits, and then I'll get into like the server and bar interactions. It's going to be really important for things to go smoothly throughout the year. And then just some other kind of policy-based stuff that we have here at Forest Highlands. And then after that, what I'm going to do is we're going to get into the draft beers. I'll give you guys descriptions of those. We have 4 out of 6 beers that you can try today. 2 on draft, 2 I don't actually have on draft. We'll just have to use cans for those. And then the other 2, the lines haven't been serviced in a while, so you don't want to use those, obviously. And then after that, we'll get into bottled beers, and then I'll go over all the different liquors we have to offer, the different varieties and such, and the hierarchies, and then just some details of some of them. And then the final thing we'll do is we'll get into the craft cocktails that we have here that Mark mentioned. We have 6 of those that we will do a demo for you guys. We'll build them, we'll have you guys try them. The caveat there is you have to be 21, of course. But yeah, so we'll end on kind of the more fun element. So yeah, let's get through the first part, a little bit more admittedly boring here. So IDing, do you guys have any experience with IDing people in the past? It's like about half of you, yeah, okay. So my rule of thumb whenever you are sizing somebody up to see if you should ID them is it's 25. If they look over 25, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Anything younger than that, it's a good idea to card them. At a country club, you're going to get a bunch of repeat members. You're going to become familiar with their faces, so obviously you don't have to card them every single time. Once you know they're 21, then they'll be good from that point on. Whenever you do card them, so the first thing you're going to look for is what state it's from. All right. If it's out of state, just immediately go seek out a manager that has some experience with different cards from different states. You'll see things like Pennsylvania, Florida, California. These are red flags. Oregon's another big one that they can replicate. And then the other thing is going to be, if they look similar to the picture or not. Yeah, for you guys, I wouldn't be the ones to really engage in that interaction of confronting them about it. Bring it to the manager, and the manager will talk to them. It can be kind of an uncomfortable conversation. It does happen here more than you think. I think I caught, I don't know, 5 or 6 fake IDs, or at least people trying to drink that were underage last year. And the reason for that is, we're kind of far away from the city out here. Cops don't patrol through here, right? It's a guarded neighborhood. They only come in here when they get a call. And I think, the members, they technically own this dwelling, right? They kind of own the club. And so they kind of can perceive it as a sort of extension of their home in a way. So, if they're with their kids, they might be inclined to just say, yeah, get a drink or whatever. But, the risk there for us as a club is if anything happens when they do, in fact, when they go to leave, they can slip, fall, hit their head, or they could crash their car or something like that. And once the police get involved and we find out that they were drinking underage, then there's a lot of liability at stake for our liquor license, and also for the bar staff. We can get in legal trouble for serving minors. So it is important that you guys are on the lookout for that. Overconsumption also happens here. So does anybody know some signs of over-intoxication? Yeah.
Kind of slumping forward, being more sleepy, than leaning on the bar.
Falling asleep, for sure, yeah.
Slurred speech.
Slurred speech, of course, yeah. Anybody else?
Really
loud or excessive talking?
Yeah, excessive talking. Stumbling, of course, as you see him walk around. We had a member jump on a table last year. That was a red flag. He later urinated all over the bathroom. So yeah, it can get kind of wild here, I guess you could say. It gets wild during the big parties that we throw, which I'll get into the details of those later. But we'll have 2,000 person barbecues here, right, where a lot of people that aren't in the membership come through. And they don't necessarily have a reputation to uphold like a lot of our members. Most of our members do keep it together for what it's worth. Haven't had a bunch of huge issues. One interesting case last year, outside of the jumping up on the table person, was a family member of the highest ranking political official here in Arizona. You guys speculate as to who that is. And so that just adds to, you guys don't want to be the one to get in these interactions because they can get a little sticky. You guys have anything to add on that, Sarah? On alcohol front, did you have any troubles throughout the year with over-intoxication?
I guess especially being, I guess you could say, females and younger, you get the older gentlemen saying, "Oh no, I'm fine," like da 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 da. If you ever feel uncomfortable in any situation, all you have to do is excuse yourself and get a manager in there, and they're going to be more than happy to step in and be like, "No, you can get some water, maybe some food for a second, and we'll reevaluate," kind of thing. A lot of the times, like he said, it is just the members' friends who tend to do the more inappropriate things or step out of line. And it really embarrasses the member, if anything. So yeah, I wouldn't say I had too many issues with members themselves, but yeah, just kind of watch or look around every once in a while when there seems to be more people than usual and you don't recognize them. They're just not going to be used to drinking at this elevation. It's really a big thing.
Yeah, out of towners for sure.
Yeah.
A lot of people come up from Phoenix, right? And so their bodies, their hemoglobin isn't ready for it up here, right? So they'll get over intoxicated pretty quickly. Next thing, so it's not just about watching out for over intoxication, but it's going to be also over ordering. So there's a limit that a person can order in one transaction, right? There's no time on this, it's not within an hour or anything like that. It's just within one interaction. Okay, so those limits are 32 ounces for beer, which is 2 pints, or a stein, but we don't usually carry steins here. 4 ounces of hard liquor. So that's a double. That's 2 shots or two drinks. Our standard pour at Forest Highlands is a country club pour, so it's a little extra relative to a restaurant downtown or bar downtown. Those are usually 1 1/4 to 1/2. We do 2 ounces as our standard pour. So double is going to be 4 ounces. Beyond a double, they shouldn't walk away from you with a double and a wine glass if they don't have somebody else with them, or if they don't have somebody they're pointing to, like, hey, this is my wife over here, this is a group of friends, that's who it's for. So it's important whenever you are serving members to take note of how much they're ordering. The other one is 12 ounces of wine. Our standard pour is going to be 6 ounces, so that's 2 glasses. So anything beyond 2 glasses, you don't want to serve to a member if it's just for themselves. So the way that transaction would go is, so say, I don't know, Mr. Moss comes here off of the course and orders a beer at one of the tables, or he orders, let's say, 4 Tower Stations, 4 strong IPAs, and then he says, I've got a couple of guys coming around the bend. That situation, if you know the member, like we know Mr. Moss, he golfs with his buddies every single Friday or whatever, and so that's actually fine. They're going to be right around the corner. At the country club, we want to be kind of pandering to the membership, right? So we want to please them. But if it's a person you don't know, or I don't know, just somebody ordering an egregious amount, then you want them to point to who those drinks are going to. If they can't point to anybody, then you can't serve. All right, makes sense? Okay. Anything to add on that, Sarah? On pour limits, yeah. The situation that I noted with the golfers coming up, that's a pretty frequent one. You know, they get into like bets and stuff coming off the course. This person's got to go get, you know, the first round for everybody, things like that. But yeah, I would just watch out for anything suspicious. So another thing is they could be bringing it to a minor. That's actually like the number one way they do it. Is, you know, they've got a couple 18-year-olds over here, so even like the father, the member will try and get 3 drinks, bring 2 to the minors. And you just want to make sure that they go ahead and point out who it is, and if they look too young, then please do go card them, because again, you don't want to run the risk of in trouble. All right. The last thing I'll touch on in that category is employee drinking. We've had some issues with that in the past. The repercussion is pretty high. It's a lot of times resulted in a firing. So you don't want that to happen. Last year I caught some people during the barbecues, especially drinking down in the keg room, just like shotgun beers. So yeah, please don't do that. They didn't have a job after that, as you might imagine. So yeah, if we even hear about it, it can be pretty bad. So I know a lot of places like down. I used to work at Maloney's, which was a rowdy dive bar essentially, right in the middle of downtown on Lake Road. It wasn't uncommon for the bartenders to have shots and stuff before service would start, get them loose, whatever. But that won't fly here. So yeah, please don't do it. Okay, let's see. So let's move on to the service station over here. So this is going to be the main interaction point between the bar staff and the servers, and it's going to be where all the drinks go out to the entire club. Have those of you that are working at the Meadow, have you actually gone to the Meadow yet? Obviously, I know you've been there before many times. Those that have worked, but you worked at the Meadow. You know what the Meadow's like. So those of you that are new, you guys haven't gone over there yet to the Meadow? Okay. They have a station like that as well on the front left of the bar. So the same rules that I say here will apply over there. So let's see. So the first thing, I know Sarah covered this a little bit in the training before with lining up the drinks appropriately. So we'll line them up in accordance with the printout that we get from you guys after you put a drink order in. So we'll face that towards you guys and place all the drinks in the exact order as that. That takes away any sort of confusion with, you know, you have 2 Chardonnays, but they come from a different company. You know, you have a Rombauer and a Sonoma Cutrer or something. You're not gonna be able to tell the difference unless you really have a keen eye for it. So that's why we do that. There's just a lot of subtle variances for drinks look the same, beers, you know, whatever. So that is why we do that. I'll make it smooth. Oh, you have a printout? Cool. Yeah. I'm going to pass that down and you can take a look at that.
Like you said, it's just kind of like that differentiation of, I don't know if I just said a word right there or not. It's just like, say you have 2 dirty martinis, one is with Belvedere and one's with Tito's. Maybe I'll put an extra olive in the one with Tito's or this and that. Even though I already like specify that this one's different, I'm still gonna put it in that order. So when it is a quicker or like more busy dinner service or lunch service, you're gonna know without a doubt that that is definitely the one with Tito's and that is definitely the one with Belvedere. Even though they might look the exact same, like it's gonna be in that order for a reason. So just look out for that.
Yeah. The other thing is we wanna make sure that you guys don't just come up and verbal your drink orders to us. There's 2 issues with that. One, things can get lost in translation. A lot of times the bartenders have a lot of other drinks on their mind that they're making, other things that they need to do, and so, you know, if they're trying to store it back there, there's more prospect for them making one subtle variance from what you actually wanted. And then also, it can result in you kind of like skipping all the other servers that are out there putting it into the computer, right? So if there's already 3 other people that are trying to put a drink order in, you just come verbal it, Well, you just jumped in front of a bunch of people that actually got their orders before you, verbal from the member, that lag time between drink at their table and when they ordered is already greater, and so you just jumped in front, and then so that compromises the service for that other table. And also, it's just kind of not cool to do to your coworkers. We're all trying to provide good service, trying to get extra gratuities as well on there. So yeah, make sure to not try and skip the line like that. There are maybe some subtle exceptions. If it's super slow during a lunch service, we're not gonna be too upset about that as bartenders. But anytime we're doing a busy dinner service, anytime we're hosting a party, anything like that, yeah, please do not just verbal your orders. Also, after you come up and grab your drinks, stab the ticket, which Sarah has demonstrated.
Oh wait, goodness.
Sarah is demonstrating there. So the reasoning behind that, why it is so important and so irritating as a bartender when it doesn't happen, is that if a bartender sees a receipt, or I should say a drink order sitting there, a different bartender, there's always 2 or 3 on a busier night, they may come up and make that. And now we have a double order. Drink tickets costs go up really quickly here, right? You have 2 Rombauers, you're already at $54, and then maybe you have a couple martinis. Suddenly, 4 drinks is $100, right? And so it's a big hit on us whenever that does happen. We've wasted a lot of good wine, right? Caymus and Silver Oak, all these fancy wines you guys learned about with Mark, have been wasted before for that exact reason. So yeah, please do stab your tickets. Those of you that are newer especially, but really anybody, you're gonna have maybe some weird drink orders come across at different times. So instead of just telling the member no, tell them, I'll ask the bartender if we're able to make that, and go ask us if we have those ingredients. I'll say whenever they do order like a really unique order, it's good to actually get those ingredients on the front end. So what happens a lot of times, these members are members of various different country clubs, and so if they had a special that one of the bartenders came up with down in Phoenix and they want to have it here, they may call it by that name, I don't know, the Phoenix Rising or something obscure, that we're not going to know about. We can make it, we just need to know the ingredients and if we have them or not, all right? But yeah, please come up and talk to us about anything that may be confusing at all. And then, in these first couple weeks especially, make sure to ask us as many questions as you can so you can learn about alcohol, right? About different drinks, about different cocktails, because it's going to come up. Every single person is gonna have some oddities come up, and so yeah, please pick our brains. Sometimes even when it's slower, that's a good opportunity. Let's say it's dinner service, it's 5:30, and we only have 2 people in the dining room. It's good to just ask us questions about different drinks, and we can even let you try certain things that we have. And that way you actually have an experience with that liquor, that beer, that wine, whatever. So yeah, we're usually happy to oblige with that, except for if we're really in the thick of it, right? It can get very busy behind the bar, especially for the parties that I mentioned. So when you see our head down and that we're stressed out, which is inevitable for bartenders at some point, don't just interject and bombard us with questions, things like that. It'll be a little bit too difficult for us. We're more than happy to help. Just be cordial with us, and that'll help that interaction. And really, the reason for all these principles here is we're all about 2 things: speed and quality, right? And so all this is going to help with speed. The one thing that comes back on us every once in a while is speed, and that's a team effort. It's not just about bartenders there. It's bar and server staff there. So yeah, it's really important that we all are on the same page with that interaction at the service well. And then yeah, quality, a lot of that is on the bartenders, but if you guys do notice that something's a little off, there's really subtle things that can happen. Yesterday, the CO2 wasn't fully kicked in, and we were making drinks, and some water came out instead of CO2, or I should say soda water. And so it wasn't bubbly, but it was really hard to notice at first. So if you guys do notice anything like that, go ahead and point it out. Another thing I'll mention is garnishes. Here, I know there's a lot of other restaurants and bars where the servers will come up and garnish the drink. We don't prefer to do that. Sometimes we have some kind of tricky garnishes to do, whether it's twists or things like that, something fancier. But also kind of signifies, that's the finishing touch we're putting on things. It signifies that the drink is done, right? So if you guys are garnishing those things, it may be pulled prematurely. So yeah, leave the garnishing to the bartenders unless they ask you to garnish it, which can't happen whenever we're in the trenches. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, kind of with that, with like the whole not garnishing a drink because it might not be done. Don't pull drink tickets or like a couple of drinks off of it if there's like not all 5 drinks are made. Say 2 of them are made. You really want to get those drinks to the table. It doesn't look good on us or you. It just like getting drinks. You want to get everyone their drink at the same time. It could also, maybe I started making a drink ticket and I'm getting pulled somewhere else. I'm like, hey, can you go finish that drink ticket for me? 2 of those drinks are already gone and that other bartender didn't see it. A remake can happen. So just try not to pull your drinks unless there's literally one exception, and it's steamers. If you have like multiple steamers, we want them to come out, which you'll see later, looking the best, and the foam will die out pretty quick at the very beginning. So we want you to take those, say it's 6 steamers, like you can take 2 out at a time or something like that. But most of the time you're gonna wanna get all cocktails to the table at the same time. And also, say maybe the bartender's like over there polishing glasses or talking to a member and a ticket comes out, make sure not to pull that ticket off the printer, because that's a sure sign for us bartenders to know that that ticket has not been looked at yet and needs to be made. So if I have pulled it, or if you pulled it for me, and I walk past it and I see that it's down, I'm assuming another bartender's already making that drink order, and I'm not gonna look into making it. So it'll just make your drinks not come out as quickly, and or like we just literally won't see it. Like it's happened, like 10 minutes go by and a server is like, I don't want to interrupt your conversation, but I have a drink. And I was like, well, I looked back at the printer multiple times and there's no ticket there. So it's like, you have to make sure we're the ones that are pulling that, and that's it.
Yeah, that's an issue at the Meadow, especially because the printer there is like right up on top of the bar. The servers can grab it pretty easily. So yeah, just be cautious of doing that. That could actually result in it taking a lot longer for your members to get their drinks. Okay, let's see. The other thing is try not to congregate too much over by the bar. We on certain nights we're doing kind of a fancy dinners, right? Multiple course meals here. The lounge is actually pretty quiet, and even same for the Meadow to an extent. And so like they can hear everything you guys are saying if you're laughing all loud. So it kind of disrupts the dining room a little bit. So yeah, please refrain from that. And it kind of just looks bad when we have like 6 servers just over there not doing anything. Looks like we're not managing appropriately. So a couple people over there, fine. If you actually have something going on, we get it. It's not like we don't want to talk to you. Like we will become friends throughout the year, right? But I think just as an aesthetic, try not to gather too much over in that corner. And then the last thing I'll say is just try not to get frustrated with the bar staff or with each other. That just kind of can compound the issues. Because it gets stressful. A lot of you guys, I'm sure, have been servers before, bartenders, whatever. Like lots on your mind. There can be some pressure that builds. Maybe a member wasn't quite as friendly as they should have been to you. We're all kind of dealing with a lot on our minds at any given point. So just be kind to each other. That really goes across all professions, but it's worth noting here between the servers and bartenders. It can get chippy every once in a while, and yeah, just have a little bit of perspective taking for each other. That's all I'm saying. Order terminology. So What I wanted to say in the beginning, but forgot, was that I'm going to flag a couple things that are definitely going to be on your test. And this is one of them. So, if you want to jot it down, it might be a good idea. Is the terminology that's going to come up when members order martinis. So martinis are super common here. So does anybody know some questions to ask the members if they just say, can I get a martini? Vodka or gin, sure. Or just what type of liquor, yeah? Dry or dirty, okay. Do you guys know, so that's two separate questions right there, yeah. Do you guys know what dry means? What's that?
Is that with alcohol juice?
No, so just not dirty, essentially not, you know. Its standard order is not with olive juice, unless they say they want it with olive juice, which that's what dirty is, all right? No, dry has to do with the vermouth. So there's bone dry, which is when you don't want it in there at all. Dry is a little bit of vermouth, and then they'll say no vermouth if they don't want any at all. All right. We typically actually don't. The members' preference is usually not to have any in there, so we usually don't put vermouth unless it's certain things like a Vesper or something like that. Yeah. Any other questions? There's the old James Bond one that is actually not asked, shaken or stirred. Yeah. 99.5, ballpark number, % of martinis ordered here, they're going to want it shaken. So the only time we don't shake is if it's by request, right? We don't want to just bombard them with too many questions here, and since that one's such a rarity, I don't ever say it. Do you ever say it, Sarah? No, shaken or stirred?
No, I feel like if you even ask someone, they're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know which one you want from me.
Yeah.
You just want to go over these ones?
Well, yeah, I'll get to those. Well, what I was going to say is the other question, well, the other thing is up, right? That is a question sometimes you want to ask, but again, most people do want it up. That's another one of those things where, you know, if they want it in a short glass, a low ball, on ice, then they'll request it, right? So we just assume martini is up, unless specified otherwise. You think of anything else for that? I mean, garnish, so like twists, olives, these kinds of things. These are all things that you can put on your test too. It's 3 questions, or I should say, yeah, the 3 questions that you want to ask. So any of those things work.
What are the 3? Is it just any 3?
Any of the ones that we just mentioned. So what kind of liquor? If they usually they say I want a Tito's martini or a Bombay martini. So you usually don't have to ask that question, but if they just say martini, which definitely happens from time to time, ask them what kind of liquor you want with that, right? But outside from that, you know, do you want that dry? Do you want or dirty or not dirty? Are kind of the big ones. Okay. Another thing, this isn't on the test, but it's something that I like to ask personally, because I drink a lot of old fashions myself, is just questions to ask with old fashions. Before I move on to that, I do want to make one point with dirty martinis, is that there's a spectrum of how dirty. So I usually do ask them how dirty they want that. Do they want it extra dirty, not so dirty, just a little bit, these kinds of things. Make sure to ask that. That's actually big, because an ounce and a half of olive juice, an ounce olive juice versus a fourth makes a massive difference. And if you're a dirty martini drinker, that's like the ultimate, you know, dictator of if you're gonna like it. Right? Okay. So old fashions. This is what made me think of it. Is how sweet is what I usually ask them. How sweet do you want it? And that'll change the build. If they want an orange peel, is another thing. So that the classic version of an old fashioned is just a sugar cube and bitters. That's it. And a cherry. But so there's different. So the original old fashioned is a sugar cube and the bitters, and there's the common way we do it is with the cherry, and then there's Wisconsin old fashioned, which is with the orange peel on there, right? I typically don't use the orange peel. Others do. So ask them if they want the orange peel, and then how sweet do they want it. And then the last thing is what kind of ice do they want? So the types of ice we have, just regular ice, right? And then we have a big rock, which is super popular with membership here. We have an ice sphere as well. Depending on if Philip wants to do that or not. Last year I kind of strayed away from it because they're a process to make, time consuming. We have these cool, I don't think Mark has it here. Oh yeah, he has one right here. I'm gonna grab it for you guys so you can see. It's heavier than I remember.
It is. It's like surprisingly heavy.
Yeah. So right here, this one will be clean, but so you just place that on there and it makes a perfect sphere. The weight and pressure cause some heat on there, and then yeah, it ends up melting and shaping it perfectly. Unlike, have you guys ever seen those molds that they have, right, where it leaves like the Saturn ring around it and like a little nipple on there? Like, we don't want to serve those, so it's kind of cheap, I think. So we've done these in the past, but yeah, they can be time consuming. So that'll be Philip's call. Knowing him, he probably wants to do it. What do you think, Sarah?
We'll see, I guess. It's
Yeah.
just annoying because you can only really do like 2 or 3 at a time, and then it's too cold, and then it has to warm up again, and then you can do a couple more. So you have to like make a reserve of them.
Which is hard because then they morph a little bit as they sit in the freezer, so they lose their shape. So yeah, those are the different ice types that we have. So again, that's just regular. There's the big cube, there's sphere, and then sometimes they just want a couple little small ice cubes in there. They'll be specific with it. They'll say 1, 2, 3. That's usually for scotch, where they don't, you know, they want to get it a little bit below room temperature, but they don't want to water the drink down. So yeah, with some of the fancier scotches, the bourbon, they'll want just a couple cubes, or they will want a room temperature. Rather, they want it neat. So that's without ice, is the terminology there. Neat, all right? And all that stuff is fair game for that test as well, all that terminology. Can you think of anything else that may come up as far as terminology goes? You guys are gonna get some weird orders. When you do get a weird order, that's whenever you kind of have a conversation with the bartender about, you know, this member wanted, I don't know, this many olives with this weird amount of sweet vermouth. I don't know. There's a bunch of different situations.
Yeah, the only other one I can think of is just making sure if somebody gets a margarita, salt or no salt. That's
Yeah.
really. And the last thing, I guess, just because we're in technology and we're going to go over glass later, you can ask them short or tall for their drinks. When it's like a Tito's and soda or gin and tonic, something like that. Some people like a little more of the mixer and some people like a little bit less. So if there's no specification, it's just always going to come in a tall glass. But if you ask them that, a lot of the times people will be like, actually, yeah, I'd like it short, or I'd like it tall because I want a double, or whatever. So
Usually they'll specify if they want it short.
Yeah.
Yeah, but our standard, it's actually abnormal to just straight put it in a double like we do in a highball. But because our standard pour is 2 ounces, that's why we do that. If we put it in a short, it would be just too strong. The taste would be too much for most people. So yeah, standard pour is in the double. Yeah, anything else? Another one is, you won't really write this, but you'll hear it said. Members talk about the head on a beer. You guys heard that terminology before, right? That's the amount of foam at the top of a beer. It's actually a really important component of a draft beer, and even pouring out of a bottle. Reason being is because it's more fragrant, it's aromatic, and that's an important part of taste, right? You guys are familiar with taste perception. It's 70% of perception with taste actually isn't your tongue, it's your olfactory, it's your nose. Smell is very important, and it also just lets them know, hey, the beer is properly carbonated, right, or has the proper amount of nitrogen for gas, which we'll get to later. All right. Let's see. Anything else on that front, Sarah? You think terminology? Good. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any questions with any of that?
The only thing I was
we're talking about martinis. The only one I didn't hear mentioned is it's probably rarely ordered, but a Gibson onion.
The cocktail onions? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we have little cocktail onions as well behind the bar. It is rarely ordered, but that reminds me too, we have blue cheese olives. So when you ask them what kind of olives they want, right, or what kind of garnish, we do have blue cheese olives. We hand stuff those too. They're like the real deal. It's a pain to hand stuff, but Sarah's usually the one that has done that. Made a lot of them. Yeah, people love blue cheese olives here. Another question?
So going back to what you were talking about, they can't point at who their drink is going towards when they're ordering it. Working at the pool, a lot of people will come up to the bar and order for the whole table. Is there any way around that besides just like going to the back window and seeing who's sitting back there?
Yeah, if they're ordering a huge order, you need to get an eye on who's it coming from, or who is it for, I should say. Okay. So you'll literally, I would just go look. Okay. I know it's kind of a pain.
No, yeah.
And then, once you do it once, you know that group. So it's fine if another person comes from that group or that same person comes from that group.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right.
I think the last thing was I forgot to mention about margaritas. We do them spicy, add jalapenos, or we also have tahini. You put on the rim for those as well. Just so people ask, so you know.
Yeah. So with margaritas, that's another thing you might want to write down as questions asked with that. Salt. Our computer actually immediately prompts you, no matter what. If you click on Skinny Mart, which is one of our craft cocktails, it's going to prompt you with salt or no salt on that. But yeah, what kind of salt do they want? And lime. That's it. All right. Any other questions on what I've covered thus far? No? Okay. All right, something that you'll probably rarely encounter, but might come up every once in a while, is the requisition sheet for liquor. And so that means if we're sending it out of our department to another, for example, the kitchen, then we have a clipboard. I'm actually going to go grab it. Oh, did I grab it over there? Bring it over there. So it's a clipboard. It's got a couple things on it that you guys will have to write down. It's what did you take, how much of, and then your initial on there. That's mostly going to be taken care of by the bartenders, but a scenario that you might need to do that is if you're working a morning shift over here, there are no bartenders, and somebody from the kitchen comes to grab something, then it's your responsibility to write that down on the sheet that they're passing around right here. And the other thing is the date, when it was. All right. Pretty straightforward on that, but again, yeah, it's going to be mostly bartenders that do that. All right. Next up is the Hole-in-One Club. So this is a club that members pay for per month. $5 is the cost, right, per month for that. So essentially, if anybody hits a hole-in-one at either of the two courses, then they can redeem one free drink at either of the clubhouses. This does not include spouses unless they actually pay for that as well. So we'll have a sheet behind the bar that has a list of everybody that's in that club, and it'll give a member number, right? So it's like say 757, and if the spouse is in it, right underneath it, it'll say 757-1. And it will say the spouse's name, so that's whenever we can do a spouse order. What I talked to Matt Bailey, who's the director of golf, last year about is if somebody thinks that they're in the member club, the hole-in-one club, I should say, but they're not actually on it. When you actually come back to the bar and talk to the bartenders about what drink was just ordered, then we'll write it down on the sheet. We'll write their name. You guys would need to then go back to them and say, hey, look, we actually don't have you on this list, but if you're comfortable with it, we can add you to them. All right, don't just straight up reject them. That's going to cause a problem, Tell them we didn't see on the list, but with your permission, we will go ahead and just add you to the list, and you'll get charged that $5 every month. Okay. Now the duration which they can redeem their drink is 1 week. All right, so they have 7 days. Sometimes, what came up last year is maybe golf won't send out an email to the whole club right away. Maybe they'll take an extra day for whatever reason. Maybe it was a Sunday or whatever, not everybody was there, whatever. That can actually extend that. So we'll inform you guys. We'll keep you in the loop. The bar staff especially keep you in the loop on any extensions on that front. But hole-in-ones, they happen a lot. There's times when we have multiple hole-in-ones going at once. So we'll have 2, 3 separate lists that go with each of those hole-in-ones. So yeah, sometimes I question if they're actually getting them all, but I guess they are. Anything to add on that, on the hole-in-one there? It's been tricky in the past, confusing in the past. So
yeah, to Jeff's point, it is a little tricky. Usually the golf when it happens on the golf course, a golf pro will come in and tell us, and then we'll spread it out amongst the staff and let you know, hey, there's a hole-in-one out there. Be aware they'll be coming in. And then members will randomly, you might not be working that shift the next day. They might ask them, we're here to get our hole-in-one drink. Again, just write it down. We can handle it.
Yeah. So when it comes to ringing in those hole-in-ones, the easiest way to do it is actually just go straight to the bartender and tell them. You don't need to actually ring it in. We're going to take care of all of that on the back end. We have a list going in the computer as well as the paper list to track who's actually received their drink thus far. That's the best way to do it. You guys started doing it at the end of the year last year. How did you do it actually, Sarah?
It's basically like, especially for Fridays, for cooldowns, which I don't think we touched on just yet, but this, like, if you're just attending the cool down, you're not able to get that hole-in-one drink, but the dinner side of things, they still can. So servers will just ring in that drink and then come over and be like, hey, can you double check if there's a hole-in-one? I'll say yes or no. And if I say yes, then they'll just go and they can cancel that drink and then just be like, it's because of the hole-in-one. And like, we'll have already talked about it. So that's a good way to like, know it's for sure going to be made, especially if it's a busier night. If it's slow, just verbal for sure. It's one of the only times it's okay to verbal stuff, and we'll check it and whatever. So it's really just on those busier times, try and just send it in and then cancel it out later. It's just a little bit easier. It makes things a little more organized because we had issues with drinks getting pulled for the wrong reason, thinking they were hole-in-one drinks and they weren't. The last thing is, for those drinks, they have to be under $15, and no, they can't subtract that amount from some sort of other drink. So it's like a glass of Titus is $22. No, you cannot just take $15 off of the Titus, because they all still, at the end of the day, get charged to golf, and so they're not going to be able to put in 3/4 of a glass of Titus. It just doesn't make sense. So
yeah. Okay. All right, next up, napkins and straws. So our policy here is to not put a straw in the drink unless requested. All right, so that's the standard. We'll send it out with no straw. We oftentimes have, like biodegradable or paper straws. Sometimes we might be out of those, so we do have to give plastic straws, just so you guys know. But yeah, it's just only per request do we put a straw in. The other thing, so with napkins, we have these printed napkins with our emblem on them. When you place them in front of a member, go ahead and just face it towards the member so they can actually read. It's just kind of a nice touch, professionalism there.
So we got a question there.
Are those napkins also used during dinner service or just lunch service?
At the bar, yes. Yeah, we'll be using those out there. So you'll bring them, you'll pull them. So we don't actually just put them out on the tables in the dining room. They'll be in these straw caddies right here. So you'll want to grab those with your cocktail. All right. And then
So
face it when you place it down.
on the patio, you should bring them out. You don't have to bring them into the dining room on the tables. That's if that's your question. Otherwise, but even when we're doing reception or wine dinner, even with a wine glass, everything that when we're cocktailing, you should give them a cocktail napkin. Champagne flute, always a cocktail napkin, because sometimes it's not just for the condensation. Ladies like to have it. Okay,
Right. Yeah, I didn't know you guys did. All right. Cool downs is the next thing. I referenced it earlier. So every Friday, most every Friday, we have essentially a big party where we shut down the lounge just for this. We set up food stations outside. We'll set up an additional bar outside too. Some cocktail tables, things like that. They do recreation, sets up things for the kids, games and stuff out in the corner of the lawn. At the bar, we always have cocktail specials. So this is where the bartenders kind of get creative with different recipes. And those are significantly discounted, so they're very popular. We've done drinks that would usually be $20 or something for $8. We still get subsidized by real estate. We get subsidized by real estate every week for that. So yeah, we can have a lot of fun with that. We can reach out to the kitchen and get specialty ingredients and things like that. We'll do specials on wines as well, batch things. But it's essentially for people winding down their week, their work week, coming up from Phoenix, coming up from the valley, and kind of letting loose a little bit and having fun. So they last, we go from 5 to 8 or so for those, and that's really when it gets very, very busy back here. Not wall to wall, but there will be several people lined up at the real peak of the busyness for those nights. So be prepared for that, especially bartenders. That's one where you kind of have your head down and you're working really hard on that. Passing hors d'oeuvres, clearing glassware on that is especially important on those cool downs. Doing it very quickly, because we can run out of glass. That's how busy it gets, right? We have I don't know 100-something wine glasses, and we can go through all of them pretty quickly. So make sure when you guys are assigned as on the cool down team for the cool down parties to collect that glassware very quickly. Another position you could be in is a name taker. And so what that is essentially you're right next to the bartender, and instead of us having to run back to the computers to enter everything in, we would compromise the speed of service significantly if we did that. We have one computer behind the bar, right? 2 if you include the server station. It's just not feasible. So what we do is we have a paper list where we write down the drink orders, the member name, and the member number. All right, so it's important to get all of that. Don't just get a number, don't just get a name, you need to get both. If you have, I don't know, Mr. Johnson or something, there could be numerous Mr. Johnsons or whoever. So we could mischarge, we could charge the wrong one, or at that point we kind of just have to throw our hands up and not charge. And then if you just get a member number, some of these members, they're from different clubs. They've got numerous different numbers that they have stored in their heads, and so they could give you the wrong one. Maybe you can mishear it. So yeah, make sure to take both the name as well as the member number there. Now, the best way to do it in terms of how you're working with the bartender is actually based on what the bartender actually likes. That particular bartender. We'll have 4 bartenders back there usually on that night. We're out on the lawn. We'll have 2. Talk with the bartenders beforehand. See if they want you to just compile a bunch of orders and then you just shoot it out at the bartender, or if they want to take the orders themselves while you're in the background just jotting it down. There's different ways to do it. I think the best way to do it is just talk to the bartenders about it. Let it be their discretion. All right. Yep.
So are all members are placing orders at the bar for their drinks, or do any servers go out and write down orders, bring it to the bar?
Yeah, good question. So they do. So yeah, you'll get orders from the bar. We'll have a separate chit sheet. Were you able to print out that chit sheet?
Oh, don't you have one behind the bar? You made a drink sheet?
Like what we would use for the cool down, yeah.
Don't you?
This one's it's a sign-in. You use it as a sign-in sheet, but you can kind of see what it does.
Well, so it's just those categories that I said. It's the drink type, the member name, member number. So we'll have another clipboard right next to the server station for you guys to write that down. What did you just get? And then that's another situation where we do verbal, the drink orders. A lot of times we'll have a name taker specifically for that server station. So you guys go to that name taker, tell them what the drinks are, they'll write it all down, memorize it, and relay that to the service well bartender. And that well gets pretty busy on those nights, so just be forewarned. But what I'll say is go to the service bartender. Don't start putting your drink orders in through the bartender that's on this side or in the front or wherever. Please do go to the designated server bartender. It just messes up the flow if you guys start mixing it up like that. Let's see. Do you have anything to add on cooldown, Sarah?
Kind of reiterate what he said earlier about not taking things too personal with bartenders and stuff when it gets a little crazy, especially if you do end up behind the bar name taking. Just like, there's a lot going on at that moment in time, and I can promise you anything being said or done is not personal. You're not doing anything wrong. It's really just, we have such a one-track thing going. Well, not one track, there's so many things happening. We're trying to do all of that at once, and we're dancing around you guys, so you may feel like you're in the way or you're doing something wrong. You're probably not. You're doing just fine. It's really hard to be behind the bar and not be in the way. So it's just kind of, again, just don't take it personally. If there is really a big issue, like it will not be handled like just like by yelling at you behind the bar. Like, we'll talk about it later. It's not going to be a big deal. So just remember that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're not going to go full staff sergeant on you, but we are going to have to give you quick and precise commands, and especially if you're bar back. If we have you assigned for bar back, you're going to get a lot of different, essentially, orders, right?
Just
from
to
the
give you
bartender.
that, and it's between $500 and $7,500 worth of liquor being sold on that night. I mean, that's a lot of booze being poured just to kind of, with 5 bartenders or the main bar too. I mean, until you see it and experience, you don't really know what it's like. I mean, it is the hard and most challenging night for these guys to do.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I worked at Maloney's, which was a crazy busy place. It gets to that level. It's like a downtown kind of scene. So yeah.
Question? Did I hear you say, Sarah, that there's no hole-in-one drinks during cool down?
Yes.
For people
correct.
attending the cool down, yeah.
Okay.
Because, I mean,
Like if they're eating in the dining room at the time.
yeah, they're good. But if somebody comes up and is like, I want a free drink, I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't have time to go and check this right now.
Just
Sorry.
the logistics on that have proven to be tough. We did accommodate for a while, but it became really tricky to do when it got super busy. So we just decided to cut that off, just to prevent any issues with speed of service, especially. So, all right. Any questions on anything we just covered on that second half? All good? Anything to add, Mark?
I mean, again, I think that cool down party is something that you really have to experience. It's what we're known for. I think there's some signature events we do, but Forest Highlands is known for their cool down party. Jeff kind of hit it. It's the welcome to the weekend party. It's everybody gets together. When are we going to play golf? We're going to have dinner this weekend. It's their big social event that we've been doing for years that people look forward to. Sometimes you'll see people at the cool down party that you won't see at any other event. That's our big signature event.
What I'll also mention, speaking of signature events, are the big barbecues that we have, right? I mentioned earlier, 2,000 people or so. We set up a whole additional bar. So on those weekends, especially, the cool down gets crazy because everybody's in town for it, right? So just for those weekends, be mentally prepared that that's going to be especially a battle. All right. Okay. That's all I have for that first section. If you guys want to take a 10-minute break, let's be back here at 5:21. Restrooms are behind this wall around the corner. The first beer you guys have, the last beer I should say, is Historic Oceanfront. This comes from a brewery in Flagstaff. Most of our beers are from Arizona, and many of them from Flagstaff, or at least northern Arizona. So Historic Oceanfront is kind of like a cerveza, right? Kind of like a Mexican beer. It's lighter than a typical American lager that you would get, and the main reason we have it is because it's great to have on the course, right? It's very light. You're not going to get inebriated too quickly. I think the alcohol content on it is 4.8. So yeah, it's a good beer to have on the course. It's pretty crisp, right? You kind of have that crisp bite right on the front end. We'll go ahead and try that out and see what you think of it. Not very bitter. Something that you can just drink a lot of them, right? Like you would with a domestic Coors Light, something like that, right? People will still have it with burgers or whatever when they come back in from the course. But yeah, its real purpose is, one, a bit of diversity to have a lighter beer, but also to be able to have something that's great for the course. Okay? So, yes, yeah, and also we do serve it with a lime, typically. The historic the company says to serve it that way since it is kind of modeled after typical cerveza, so we do serve that with the lime. We didn't give you guys a lime here because it's such a small portion. If we squeeze a lime in there, it'll kind of overpower it. Right? So, what do you guys think? Any thoughts on it? Better than like having a Coors Light on draft, right? More flavor to it than a Coors Light. It's not like you're just drinking murky water, right? So that's kind of the point of that. We did have Coors Light and Bud Light on at different points, but yeah, we wanted to have something kind of crafty that was on the lighter side. Okay. So the next we'll do another draft, which is let's do the Tower Station.
Okay. I'm just gonna come around or into
As far as Flagstaff goes, Flagstaff made beers go. They have two brewery like tap houses. They have one downtown and one off of Butler that are cool venues if you guys have been there before. Take your dog, whatever. But so an IPA, for those of you that might be unfamiliar, so stronger, right? It's 7.1, I believe, or 7.3. 7.3 alcohol content, and it has a high bitterness rating at 70. So IPAs tend to be very on the bitter side. Hoppy is another word for it, right? So golfers do drink this on the course, but you can't put down a ton of them because then your shot's going to be going off into the woods and such. So usually we see golfers come back off the course and they start switching to Tower Station. It's a beer that can go with a lot of things, burgers, whatever, different types of bar food and things of that stuff. It's from the longest time was my favorite beer. Definitely like IPAs, and it was the best IPA it had. It has a grapefruit essence to it. They flavor it with a little bit of grapefruit, so if you guys want to taste it, you'll have that subtle grapefruit there with that bitterness, kind of a full mouth, if you will. It's not light like the previous one that you guys have. So those two are good to contrast with one another, the historic and the Tower Station, since they're pretty much opposites. All right. And is incredibly popular though. You can get that order all the time. Go through a couple kegs a week of it. The next beer that we have, so we're actually pouring you Kilt Lifter right now because we don't have Lumberyard Red in yet. It comes next week. We'll have that on draft. So this is Kilt Lifter, but it's at least a close approximation for you with having an amber. So that way you can kind of help recommend that. So Lumberyard, you guys may have seen it right off the tracks, off of 66. One of the first craft brew companies here in Flagstaff. The red ale especially was incredibly popular in like the 2010s or so. That was kind of the gem before Tower Station took over, if you will, the Flagstaff craft brew. To me, the red has kind of unique taste to it. It kind of has like a little bit of a metallic taste to it, to be honest with you. And Lumberyard has a little bit of a hairspray essence. But people that like amber, they have an affinity for Lumberyard. But if you like, some people like it or you don't. It's kind of an acquired taste, in my opinion. What was the red last year in terms of sales hierarchy? The Oak Creek.
I picked up the menu, probably middle of the pack.
Middle of the pack. Yeah.
really
You like
good.
it?
I liked the Oak Creek a lot.
The Oak Creek is great,
Like,
yeah.
I like it really like.
So we had Oak Creek last year, which is, I think, a better red. The problem is this year, what Mark wants to do is have all of our draft beers in a can available on the course. And so they didn't have it canned from Oak Creek. So yeah, we switched to Lumberyard. I think it's a great idea to have all those beers out there because it's going to promote them a bit more, especially the newer ones that we're doing, which I'll get into next. But yeah, we'll have that on the course for them. Question?
So, I'll give you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So are we doing what's our amber for the season?
Red.
But we're not doing color.
No.
This is just a
We just
taste
use
of
Kill
amber.
Lifter just to give you a taste of what an amber's like. It's the closest approximation we had back here right now. We aren't getting the keg until I think next week. So
Yeah, it's literally, as far as bar sales, is Mother Road is #1, over 3,000 poured. Historic right behind it at 2,500, and then it drops off pretty precipitously after that. Oak Creek is the next, believe it or not, at 980, and then it was the Forest Highlands Ale at almost 900, and then the last one was Guinness, was 850. And the Wow Week we brought on late, so it's hard to put that in there as a beer. So.
okay. All right. Now the ambers, it's kind of diverse, right? It's not too strong. You can have it on the course. They're usually right around 5% alcohol content, but it's a little bit more dynamic than you would get with the lighter ales. So you can, it's a good complementary to food as well, right? To a burger or something like that. All right. The next that we're going to do is our stout. So that is the one beer that is not from Arizona that we have, going with Guinness. Right? You guys are probably all familiar with Guinness. Guinness is the most popular stout out there. I've found that even other craft stouts, Left Hand Milk Stout, for example, which is a good one, it's not a whole nother level up in terms of quality from Guinness. Guinness is, from the start, done the stout as about as good as you can get it. So yeah, we've gone with Guinness for the past few years, even before that, before I was here. It's got kind of a coffee essence to it, right? It's a dark beer, but don't confuse dark beer with being strong in terms of liquor content. That's a misconception I think that some people have, is they think the darker the stronger. It's absolutely not the case. What Guinness sits at 4.2, so it's our lowest of all the beers we have in terms of liquor content. But it is a little bit frothier, a little bit kind of creamy, velvety texture to it, so it sits a little bit heavy in the stomach. So you tend not to have too many of them. You usually stick with maybe one or two of them. We use, so all the other beers, they run off of CO2. We use nitrogen, which is standard for stouts in general. And that's what gives it kind of that more velvety texture to it. It's a really nice stout. It's withstood the test of time for sure. All right, so that's all we have for you to sample, but I still want to talk about the other beers. Especially, I think the most exciting new beer that we have is Spellbinder. So that is a hazy IPA. That comes from Wren House, which is one of the best breweries in Arizona. It's based out of Phoenix, downtown Phoenix actually. They have a wonderful tap house down there. But Spellbinder has, in the past maybe 2 years, really taken off in popularity. Hazy IPAs in general have kind of taken off. IPAs became kind of a fad in maybe like around 2012 or so, and then the hazies in the past 5 or 6 years have really became popular too, as people wanted to try something new. Hazy is essentially like an unfiltered, heavily fermented rendering of an IPA, so it's still super bitter, but it's a little bit more dense on your palate. Spellbinder in particular, it's pretty high in alcohol content. It's at 7.1, so not as high as Tower Station, but it's those same kind of rules apply. Where once you have two of those things, you'll start to feel it a bit. You'll start to see some swaying, I think. We haven't had it here yet, but I think it's going to be super popular, especially with a lot of our members being from Phoenix. There's some awareness out there about Wren House, but especially Spellbinder in particular. It's my favorite beer now, overtaking Tower Station for me. The problem is it's very expensive. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it in a grocery store. It's like $20 for a 4-pack of them. There's 16 of the tall ones, but still, that's the most expensive beer in any store that you'll see. But for good reason. They have a pretty sophisticated way of processing it. They do this like spinning vortex fermentation process that is unique to it. So yeah, it's great. It's going to have a little bit of tangerine essence in it as opposed to the grapefruit like Tower Station does. Over-ripened strawberries, really sweet strawberries in there, so it's going to have just a little bit more of a fruitiness to it. To kind of tame the hazy aspect of it. And then the other descriptor they have on their website is pungent dank pineapple. So another fruit to kind of counteract. Yeah.
Did you say where in Phoenix it is?
Right in downtown Phoenix on 7th Street and I want to say Thomas. Yeah? Is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah, no. Okay. You want to visit there? Or?
Sounds right.
Like that much. I just wanted to know like where, like if they ask, where's it from?
We're an IPA heavy club in general. As you heard Mark say those numbers, Tower Station is just far above the rest. So yeah, try and push the Spellbinder. I think we're excited to have that on the menu. That's kind of the craftiest beer we have. All right, and that's it for the draft beers. So we have beers by the bottle as well. They're just kind of those typical domestics for the most part, right? So they're your Coors Light, Bud Light, Miller Light. You obviously got to have those on the golf course or at the restaurant. A couple other ones to point out. So we have some Italian beers, so that's Stella Artois and Peroni. A couple members have an affinity for that. We have Cerveza, so we have Corona and Corona Light. That's the only cervezas we have for bottles. All right, we don't have Dos Equis or anything like that. It's Corona. Hefeweizen, we have Blue Moon. We had Shock Top in the past, but we sold like 2 last season, so we're not having that anymore. We're just sticking with Blue Moon. We have 2 non-alcoholics. Actually, Mark, you're still doing O'Doul's, right? No? Off? Okay. So we have 2 non-alcoholic beers. We have Partake IPA. Right, so that's going to be mimicking what an IPA tastes like. It gets pretty close. It's the closest we've seen. It's pretty good. There's some members taking a liking to it. Mrs. Lonergan, she likes to have it like a brandy snifter, which is this glass right here. You see, if you ever go to like a craft brewery, they like to serve some beers in that, stronger beers. It's a bit ironic they drink it out of that. And then Cerveza Atletica, which we were just tasting before. Here, pretty close approximate to a Cerveza, to something like a Corona Extra. It's, I would say it doesn't taste too light, so it's kind of just like a straight up Cerveza. All right, and then Michelob Ultra and Coors Light, those are our 2 most popular by the bottle, Coors Light especially. We sell a ton of Coors Light in those silver bullet aluminum cans on the golf course. They go through maybe 20 cases of it a week a lot of times, especially for the big events that we have that draw in a lot of golfers. All right. Okay. Any questions on beers? That's all of our drafts and bottles. No. We also have.
Yep, you told them that the drafts will be in.
Yeah. Yep. We also have some seltzers, which of course have been super popular the past few years. Those are trendy as well. We had the White Claws initially when they were very popular. Then it kind of shifted to Topo Chico. This club likes High Noons. That's kind of their thing. High Noons are a little less malty, and they have a little bit. They have some different flavors that members have taken a liking to. So we sell a lot of High Noons here. But we'll also keep Topo Chicos on. No more White Claws though.
long
All right.
drink.
What's that?
And long drink will be the best.
You keep it long drink? Cool. Yeah, long drink is this, it's a Finnish seltzer, Finland, and it's gin based. And that one really doesn't have that typical seltzer maltiness to it.
It's more of a cocktail.
It's more of a cocktail in a can, yeah. Question?
Are we getting rid of completely the White Claws?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a couple more cases.
I should. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. If people nag me and say, "Why don't we have a White Claw where y'all will lend?" But I don't think we need to have 4. It just seems too many at this
So,
point.
would you-
People have shifted more. I think we'll be able to meet everybody's needs. But if people keep coming up to the bar and giving you a hard time and say, "Why don't we have it anymore?" Let me know, and I'll
So high
think about it.
end, the long drink, and
Little Chico.
Go with Chico. Yeah, those 3. I mean, how many do you need?
I know there's so many of them.
Yeah, and they all have different flavors too, so they've got options onto the seltzer front. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna move over into alcohol. So like Mark said, sometimes we'll get members requesting certain things, and we, we'll abide by it usually. So there's a lot of like pet liquors that we have that I don't have out here just because they're for like 1, maybe 2 members. So this isn't our full selection that I'm gonna go over right now, but it's a lot of the more popular ones and maybe the little bit more unique ones that perhaps you can pitch to members if they want to try something new. So I'll start with vodka. So vodka's quality is primarily determined by how many times it's distilled. The base amount of times that it must be distilled according to law is 2 different times. Right, so distillation process, they're essentially filtering out all the impurities. They're also filtering out certain types of alcohol that are damaging to the human body. In particular, they can damage the retina of your eye and cause blindness. So like moonshine liquor, there's, back in the day and even now, oftentimes you get cases that show up in the hospital of blindness because of things like that. Not super often, but it happens. So, yeah, the regulation is 2 times distilled. The better vodkas can be 8 to 10 times distilled. So you look at a Belvedere, a Grey Goose, a Chopin, and just so you know, that is the way to pronounce it. It's based off of the pianist Chopin. French. Not Chopin. Our well is Tito's. That's a pretty high-end well as far as vodka goes. A lot of people love Tito's. It's not too crazy expensive, but you still get a lot of that quality. Some people might say they've done a great job with marketing. Their branding has been fantastic. I believe they're potato-based. Yeah. So potato, grain, these are the things that vodka is often made out of. Rice is another thing they're made out of. Some Japanese vodkas have that. So that's going to be our well. Super popular. For the longest time, that would be what we would serve the most. Now I think the membership's gotten a little bit more diverse, especially with tequilas and bourbons, which we'll get into later. Up from that, for the calls, we have Absolute, Kettle, Hanson's. We have some other more common ones you guys have probably heard of. We have Smirnoff, Stoli as well. Hanson's is our fully organic vodka. It's a really nice vodka actually. We don't sell a lot of it, but it's sometimes fun to include in specials and things like that. We have regular Hanson's, and then we have a ginger flavored Hanson's. We have Van Gogh. Van Gogh is almost exclusively used for one of our craft cocktails, an espresso martini that we have called the Work of Art. We'll go into more details on that, but it's a really high quality Dutch chocolate vodka. I'm usually not a fan of flavored vodkas, but they do a pretty good job on that one. So it has a little bit lower liquor content on most every flavor vodka. Vodka's baseline is 40%, so an 80 proof, right? So proof is always double what the alcohol content is. So 40% alcohol in that, with flavors being about 35. The top tier here with Belvedere, Chopin, Grey Goose. Grey Goose is the most popular of those. Used for a lot of martinis. And also people tend to drink it just straight up on the rocks, right? With just ice, especially Chopin. Mr. Diesel is one member that gets it literally every single day as he comes in here. My personal favorite is Belvedere. I think it's a really, really clean, smooth vodka. That's great for martinis. The best vodka is actually the vodka that doesn't have much taste to it, right? That's their goal, is to make it not too much of a burn, too much of a sting on the tongue. All right? Any questions on vodka? All right, moving on. Gin. Does anybody know the primary ingredient for gin? Yeah? Yeah. So juniper berries. So it's kind of got a piney, Christmas tree kind of essence to it. But aside from that, gins can get pretty diverse, pretty dynamic. They have things like coriander seeds, angelica roots, different citrus they'll put in there, nutmeg, licorice, all kinds of things. They mix it up. But London dry gin specifically, they don't do that. They don't add in that stuff. It's just the juniper. All right? Same thing, you want to distill it a lot so it's a really clean alcohol, so you don't have any of those impurities in there. So our London dry gin, that's going to be a Bombay. And then up from that, Bombay Sapphire, we would call, that's probably the most popular for us, as well as Tanqueray. A lot of martinis are done with these, and of course, they add tonics, so gin tonics. Brokers is one that's less familiar, I think, for most people. It's based out of London, out of England. It's a highly rated gin out there. We use it for one of our craft cocktails as well, Jack the Ripper, which we'll make for you later today. That's one of my favorite gins, though. And then up from that, Monkey Shoulder, Hendrix, Nullets. Those are the ones that are not London dry. They're more dynamic. They have those different ingredients that I listed off for you guys. Yeah, they've got a lot more going on. Our highest end is going to be the Monkey 47. That's higher liquor content than vodka. So typically about 47% for gin, roughly 90 proof. 43, 47, 47, 47. In addition, we have other types of gin. So we have barrel gin. So they age that in an oak barrel. That's Spirit Works that does that. They don't age it for too long. You don't get too much of that oakiness in there like you would get with a bourbon. But it's a nice little kind of change up to gin. It adds just a little bit different of a flavor profile. And then we have slow gin as well. Not all that popular, slow gin, but it's used in like things like a gin fizz, sugar Prosecco combination, which is a really good cocktail. Slow gin is based on a slow berry, so it's unlike the others. It's a lot lower liquor content. We got 27% on this, kind of fruity, almost like a raspberry. I'd say is the closest flavor profile to that. Any questions on gin? Okay. Rum. So rum is based on sugar canes. There's different types of rum. There's your regular rum, then you have silver rum, and then you have dark rum and spice rum. A lot of variety in there. So silver rum is just going to be aged in aluminum. Just allows for the ingredients to diffuse a little bit. And then the brown rums here, they are aged for about 6 months in oak barrels. So they got a little bit more of that oakiness to it, but a little bit more mellow than a silver. Oakiness, it usually takes off the edge a little bit. That's what's kind of nice about aging them in barrels. You also get obviously some flavors in there from the oak, but it really helps with taking the bite off a bit. Spice rum, they add things like cardamom, cinnamon, things like this for Captain Morgan. So our well, I should say, is Bacardi. Up from that, the Calls, Captain Morgan, Mount Gay is a really good one. And then we have the heavily aged rums. So Don Pancho, we have an 8-year and an 18-year. That's super long for a rum. And so it almost takes on the character of a bourbon at that point, I've noticed. Especially this 18-year. Get a chance to taste it, it almost loses its rum essence. It's still there a little bit, it still tastes that kind of sugar cane essence to it, but it's got a hint of bourbon. It's really, I think it takes people by surprise, members by surprise when you recommend it, because it's something that's really unique. And then we have dark rum here. It's used for things like dark and stormies, or as a float on top of like a Mai Tai or something like that. Darker rum, you get that contrasting colors. It's usually it has a spiced essence to it. Kraken is my favorite dark rum that we have. We also have Myers, is another type of dark rum. Rum is not super popular here, to be honest with you. People tend to gravitate towards vodka, tequila, and bourbon. I think probably the Bacardi is the most popular. Tequila. So tequila is kind of taken off in popularity, I'd say right around the COVID time, maybe just a little bit before. It gained a ton of popularity, not just here at Forest Highlands, but around the nation. Tequila sales are way up. There's 3 main types of tequila, and it's based on really how long you age it in the barrels. So you have silver or blanco, those are essentially synonyms. And then up from there you have reposado, and then you have añejo. So silver, blanco, they're not put into wood, they never touch wood. They're again allowed to diffuse in an aluminum barrel for about 3 months. It's usually the timing on that. Of course, it comes from the agave plant. It's the source there. Agave plant, big massive plant that's in the ground. They chop it up and then essentially cook it under high pressure, high heat, and then they'll filter out all those ingredients and distill it. And then they age it, allow it to diffuse for silver, and then for reposado, they age it for 6 months to a year in the barrels, and that's why it's got a little bit lighter hue than this guy. You see the comparison? A little bit darker here. 1 to 3 years for an añejo. There's also extra añejos, and those are 3 years and beyond. So blancos and silvers tend to have more of a bite to it, whereas the reposados and the añejos don't. They're a little bit more mellowed out, correlating with the years in the barrel, time in the barrel. What that means is silvers usually belong in mixed drinks, especially margaritas. Margaritas especially, they cut through that lime and agave syrup, the sugars, and they're actually pronounced in that drink. Whereas if you put a reposado or an añejo, it almost tastes diluted. You still have 2 ounces there, but sometimes people will think they're getting short poured on it, just because it's so smooth that it doesn't really cut through. I think there's less alcohol in there. So the reposados and the añejos are usually drank either just straight up. People shoot them, people will sip them, and maybe they'll do some soda water in there. For the reposados and nejos, usually it's just straight up that they'll drink those. So House Jose Cuervo, it's a gold. It's like a mix, a little bit cheaper of a way to produce tequila. Up from there we have Patron and Don Julio. Patron was very popular for some time, kind of dominated the tequila realm, but it's since been overtaken, I think, by Casamigos. I don't actually know the numbers on that, but at least here at the club, Casamigos is by far the most popular tequila. We used to order maybe just one case, and that'll last us a couple weeks. Now we'll go through, I don't know, 10 plus cases in a week, right? So just give you that trajectory there. Yeah, Casamigos, if you guys don't know, it was started by George Clooney, super famous actor. Sold it for $3 billion. Mark, you know what number on it? $3 billion?
Yeah, something like that.
$3 billion. So that's how popular that company's gotten. You're going to sell mostly Casamigos here. Right, very few people ever do Jose Cuervo. It's usually if we batch something, maybe that'll get rid of it, but it's a lot of Casamigos. Don Julio, I'll say, is like the better Blanco compared to Patron. Patron's, again, one of those big brands that kind of is what propels them, but Don Julio is a little bit nicer of a silver Blanco, I should say. And then we recently have added the Clase Azul, Don Julio 1942. Those are the very high-end tequilas, 25 a shot for those. The Clase Azul they're both reposados here. So they're fall in that category of 6 months to a year. I should say the Don Julio is actually in a Nejo, so it's a little bit longer. So that's the big difference there. You'll see Clase Azul. People will do soda with that, soda water, that's fine. It's probably my favorite tequila right now. It's a really great tequila, really smooth. It doesn't bite you too much. And then the Don Julio 1942 is pretty famous for being a real high-end tequila. It's available in most places. I'd say Clase Azules became a little bit more popular than the Don Julio 1942 this past season. The bottle's super pretty. After we finish it, feel free to ask if you guys want to take one home. I have one at home with like little flowers coming out of it. And then we have the Casamigos Mezcal. So Mezcal is tequila, but they age in some smoky barrels. I think they even char up the agave plant itself. It's a really acquired taste, Mezcal is. A lot of people don't like it. But it's important to have. You can do a lot of fun cocktails with it. Some people are really drawn to it. So yeah, if somebody likes smokiness, that's a good route to go for that with tequila. Any questions on tequila? No? Got kind of a saltiness to it. I'm sure you guys all mentioned tequila too. Okay, so next up, whiskeys and bourbons. So, Jack Daniels. It's a whiskey, not a bourbon. It's from Tennessee. So the distinction there between bourbons and whiskeys is that bourbons are specifically made in the United States. They used to be just Bourbon County, Kentucky, then the United States. So anything outside of the United States can't be considered a bourbon, much like Champagne in France, right? Bourbon's ingredients, they have rye, mash, barley, wheat in there, corn in there. Another distinction that's important is rye. So rye is going to have, a rye whiskey is going to have 51% rye in the processing of it. Whereas a bourbon is going to have over 50% mash. All right? So ryes pack a little bit more of a punch to them, and a lot of people like that. So they like to do that in like old fashions, right, where it's kind of balanced. You get that punch, but you also have kind of that sweetness that comes from the sugar cube and the cherry. And then we also have Canadian and Irish whiskeys as well. So Crown Royal, Canadian, Seagram's, Canadian, and then Jameson and Bushmills are the two Irish whiskeys that we have. So those kind of sell themselves, right? But the club has really kind of taken a liking to bourbon over the past few years. We've diversified our bourbon selection. It's a lot more than what I have up here. Can't really fit them all, but I took out a couple of the key highlights. So I'll start with the calls on that. So Bullet Bourbon, Bullet in general, was pretty popular, I'd say 2015 or so. People still like to drink it. It's a good kind of entry-level bourbon. Up from that, in the calls is going to be Four Roses. Four Roses, been around for a long time. They have different quality levels. They have a regular, they have a small batch. This is the single barrel. Single barrel is the one that's won a lot of awards for bourbon contests, American bourbon contests. So yeah, it's one of my favorites. It's a great bourbon to have with an old-fashioned Manhattan. Jefferson's, this is what we use in our Manhattans. That's one of our craft cocktails. Second most popular craft cocktail that we have. Small batch, not a huge company with a lot of brand awareness, but it's a really good suggestion if people want to try a new bourbon to go with. And along its same kind of profile is Basil Hayden. Both of these, they're not high in liquor content as some of the higher end ones go, you'll see. So they can be just sipped on and are pretty palatable. Somebody's trying to kind of get into bourbons, that's a good starting point. Basil Hayden or Jefferson's. One that I've really taken a liking to is Angel's Envy. It's aged in a port barrel. It still has somewhat higher liquor content, but that port barrel, I think, kind of takes the edge off. It gives a little bit of a sweetness to it, like you get with port wines, as Mark talked about during his wine lecture. And then we have some of the high-end ones, so Smoke Wagon, Booker's, Garrison Brothers over here. You'll see actually these have very high liquor content, 57 on this Smoke Wagon. I think Booker's is even higher. It is 62%. So bourbon drinkers, they do like a little of that bite, a little higher content, but with these high-end bourbons, they're dynamic enough, they're aged for a long time that it takes off that bite a little bit, so you're shocked to find that this 62% bourbon is actually incredibly smooth. It doesn't taste like you're putting out something that strong. And that's one of our highest end is the Booker, the Garrison Brothers. We have a couple other that we don't have in right now. Colonel Taylor is one, a really popular one, very high in liquor content. And then one that members especially like, just because it's rareness, is Blanton's. Blanton's is one that you can usually only get when you order a lot of product from Buffalo Trace. So you find it at bars and restaurants that sell a lot of bourbon. Hard to find in stores. I think I actually found it kind of once at Chevron off of Lake Mary Road, which was surprising. But Blanton's, yeah, because of its rarity, people kind of clamor to it. We get about 9 bottles every year, and if we show those, they go very quickly within a week or so. They can. We try and kind of ration them a little bit. They have a little collector's item component to it on the top. They have like this little running horse, and they have Blanton's gives you this display where you can collect all the horses, if you will. It shows them essentially moving their legs in a running position. Okay. Any questions on bourbons, whiskeys? Do we have Fireball? Yes. So good with cinnamon whiskey. We do have Fireball, but we don't really sell too much of it. I'm not a fan of Fireball at all. But we have some members that will request it every once in a while. We like to go as far as cinnamon whiskey with Jack Daniel's Fire. The reason for that is that Fireball, with all its popularity in America, has been banned in every other first world country. because it has some ingredients that are harmful to you. Ingredients that are used usually in air conditioning units. So yeah, we try and sell that, but every once in a while, arm twisted not to overdo it. Cinnamon whiskey is usually just drank as shots. People usually do their celebratory shots. Okay. All right, so on to Scotch. Our club's not a huge Scotch drinking club, so we don't have a ton of diversity, I'd say, but still a decent amount just for the occasional Scotch drinker. Well is Dewar's. So Dewar's is a blend. There's two different types. There's blend, and then there's single malt. All right, so single malt stays in, sometimes they do different casks, but it's one batch, right? Whereas for blended, they're gonna use multiple batches, and that's just for coordinating quality control. So they, if you have an outlier, a certain set of batches, you have an outlier, it gets kind of masked by all the other batches. So controls for quality. Scotch's quality, though, is really dictated by how long it's been aged for. All right, so you get anything from 12, 20 years and beyond. 18 years is our oldest. We have that's Macallan. We have the Glenlivet 18. We have the rare cask Macallan. These are high-end shots. They're $50 a piece for those 18s. Usually for celebratory situations. If you have a member that likes Scotch, and it's their birthday or something like that, it may be good to recommend something like a rare cask Macallan. Scotch drinkers typically know the Scotch that they like the most, so they'll call it out for you. They'll say, I like Macallan 12, 15, or Oban, or whatever. Its primary characteristic is its peatiness, kind of a smokiness to it, right? And it's definitely an acquired flavor. I feel like I've wanted to like Scotch for so long, but my palate just doesn't want to do it. So yeah, not a huge Scotch drinking club, but you'll get the occasional order for Scotch. Usually, nightcap type of drink. Not often drank during the day. Right. And then lastly down here I have a cognac. So extra fermented champagne cognac is. Usually a nightcap drink as well. Served in a brandy snifter. What this is. Kind of a fancy drink. Not super popular either, but you'll get that order every once in a while. So just so you know, we do have cognac. We have Cavassier, is the main one, that's how you pronounce that, Cavassier. We have Remy Martin, is another one. Okay, any questions on those last few things that I went over? Okay. All right, I'm gonna go over glassware and then we'll go on a break. All right, so highball here, this is our basic highball. We serve most of our drinks in. Low ball here. Copper mug for mules, Moscow mules. Conductive, it keeps the drink colder for longer. The contrary, this is for hot drinks. Hot toddies, Irish coffee, go in this. Tom Collins glass, so gin-based drink here. And really, we just can play with these for certain craft cocktails that we want to use. This is our fancier low ball that we only put kind of our higher end bourbons and scotches in. It has the Forest Highlands logo on it with a little golf ball imprinted on it. Very heavy on the bottom, very light on top. And that's important that you guys know because it's super fragile. These chip all the time. They're very expensive glasses, so it's always pretty sad whenever that happens. So be very careful with these. Don't ever set them downward. Just never. Don't ever set them downward. Especially on back there, the metal grate that we have, where you guys bring back used, right? When you're bussing tables, that metal grate chips glass left and right. So never put really any glass downward. And it's also important to mention, if you can, try not to put any glassware on the bar, any dirty glassware on the bar. When you guys return it, you always return it over there. and ideally on the metal grate on this side. And you guys will see, we're gonna have you all move over there for the craft cocktail demonstration. You'll see the grate, take a look at it, know to try and place them there, not actually on the bar. It looks not good to have a bunch of dirty glasses, just not good. All right. Martini glass, up glass here. We'll be serving these a lot. Tend to spill a lot. If you've carried it before, you know what I'm talking about. The trick there is not to actually look at it, right? Just hold it. So make sure you have it straight on, and then just hold it. I don't know, our brains mess with us when we look at it. And then this is the coupe glass, same volume as our martini glasses. All right, they can hold 4 ounces in here. Coupe, kind of a fancier look, I think. You can put a lot of different drinks in this. I think it's technically from like Queen Elizabeth. Is it Queen Elizabeth? Yeah, Queen Elizabeth's breast, apparently. The sizing of it is. What's that?
That's just one of my favorite facts.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it a lot though because it's got the curvature at the end and that's going to prevent it from spilling a lot, right? Even with drinks that we froth up, right? If we use like an egg white or something, it can hold the foam pretty high up, 1/2 centimeter or so, and it looks really nice when we do that. And I showed you guys the brandy snifter already. Put cognac, brandy in that, and then some people like to put the beers in there because it looks fancy. All right. Okay, any questions before I give you guys a break here?
We're gonna, if they're in the order on your little drink list, we're gonna make the drinks so you can kind of get a little taste for them.
All right, so she'll make them and I'll kind of describe what she's doing here. So we'll start with the FH Manhattan. Again, kind of a nighttime cocktail. Manhattan is a bourbon-based drink. We use Jefferson's, as I mentioned. It's also combined with sweet vermouth. This is like a wine-based liqueur. It's got some like bitterness to it. And then we'll put in bitters as well. Adds a little bit more of a flavor profile to it. Bitters are kind of like a lot of spices in them. That bitters in particular. No big rocks today.
Oh shoot.
Yeah. So she'll combine the ingredients in this crystal stir glass here. The reason for that is with a shaker, when you shake that up, you get a lot of air and a lot of like watered downness when you shake it. So we like to stir pretty much everything that's bourbon based. So that. We put it in our fancy Forest Highlands glass over a big rock. That rock isn't too big. As you can see, it's been in the freezer. It kind of can lose its shape over just a couple of weeks. Usually it's 3 times the size of that. And we pour it over a cherry. We try and make sure to pour the liquid onto the cherry so it diffuses that kind of cherry juices. It's an Amarera cherry, aged in brandy, kind of sweet candy cherry, really fancy cherry.
If you're of age, we have, where did I just put those? Straws. Oh,
So next up, FH Mule. So a lot of our cocktails on this list, kind of simple, right? Just a few ingredients. And there's reason for that is because it can get incredibly busy here, especially with the cool downs and the barbecues and big parties that we'll have. So we don't want to constrain ourselves too much with having too complex of a list. However, we do, on certain nights, do specialty cocktails that are a bit more complex, very sophisticated than these. But our goal for the most part with these cocktails is to do a simple recipe right. All right. So we try and use better liquors. We try and so Sarah's gonna muddle mint and muddle limes, right? So it's all fresh for this mule. You're gonna shake it, not just combine the ingredients into the glass. Like you'll get it most every place that does mules. They just combine it right into it. Doesn't diffuse the flavors appropriately. So it's going to be a ginger vodka, Hanson's. It's that organic vodka. Dash of bitters, muddled lime, muddled mint. And then she tops it off with Fever Tree ginger beer. Is that the tonic or the ginger? Fever Tree ginger beer. So Fever Tree, you could see in there like the murky ginger.
It was originally settled at the bottom.
It was settled at the bottom, exactly. Very gingery. Comes through a lot. So that's a pretty high-end ginger beer, probably the best ginger beer you can get. And then we will garnish it with a mint that we slap. A little harder.
I'm just kidding.
So that's not just for show. There's a functionality to that releases the oils, which give a smell, an aroma, an aromatic, a mintiness to it. And then garnish with lime as well. So it's a really kind of light, crisp drink, great for day drinking, great for the golf course as well. Next up, we'll do the skinny margarita. This is, I think, the most popular drink. Margaritas have taken off alongside tequilas in popularity. So we use Casamigos Blanco, 2 ounces of that. So very excellent Blanco. And then we use agave nectar and lime juice, fresh squeezed lime juice. Most of the time we're actually fresh squeezing in. So a lot of times when you go to a place, we'll use sweet and sour. I don't know, it's kind of a cheaper ingredient, right? A lot of high fructose corn syrup, right? So that's why I think it was initially called skinny margarita, because you're getting away from that super high sugar content that you get in high fructose corn syrup.
Is that a sugar?
You'll get much more of the lime coming through with a margarita that's made with lime and agave. It is kind of the way it should be made, though. It's not necessarily a skinny margarita, it's just the way a margarita should be. Sarah will top it off with a orange liqueur. We use Grand Marnier, also known as turning into a Cadillac margarita. Orange liqueur, kind of sweet, still really strong though. And yeah, so it's a pretty strong margarita with the 2 ounces of Casamigos plus the...
So you can kind of see the gradient. Another one that's going to be ordered a lot at the pool, like a lot. I'm going to mix it up just so you guys don't all get just like the Grand Marnier flavor, but...
We do it spicy also. The way we do that is we muddle jalapeno straight into it. We don't use any Serrano bitters or anything like that. We muddle it directly in and shake it.
Okay. Southbound Greyhound. Not as ordered as much last summer as it was the one before, but definitely a really popular cocktail, our sweetest for sure on the menu.
Yeah. If you like sweet cocktails, this one is for you. Sarah muddled strawberries directly into it. She's put lemon juice in there, 1 ounce of lemon juice, 1 ounce of Demerara. Demerara is a sweet syrup, kind of like simple syrup, but Demerara, not as high concentration of glucose in it. Deep Eddy's grapefruit vodka. And then St. Germain's elderflower liqueur. Elderflower is a little bit sweet. A little bit floral elderflower. Shakes that up. And she'll top it with soda water. Soda water can give it a little extra.
Make sure it was soda watery.
Soda water will allow it to kind of, I don't know, dance on your tongue a little bit.
Southbound Greyhound. So it's this soda water is sitting on top. I'm gonna swirl it around again so you guys don't just get so.
We're even adding to our menu. They can also do tequila. This is the egg white based drink. All right, so egg white kind of intimidates people, a bit if they haven't had it before in a drink. We tried to use aquafaba at first. This is another substitute for that frothy velviness that you're going to get from the egg white. So aquafaba, I should say, is from chickpeas. It's the liquid in chickpeas, canned chickpeas. And it just gives a weird bean flavor to me, and it just wasn't worth it. So, yeah, this is more for people that are cocktail drinkers, right? Are really familiar with going to cocktail bars and stuff like that. Ordering those a little bit more sophisticated drinks. I love using egg white because the frothiness it gives to it, the velvetyness. So, I was just going to say that. Sarah is dry shaking it right now. What that means is only putting the egg white in there, frothing it up. Did you use the strainer wire?
No, I forgot to.
The strainer wire makes it get even more foamy in there, which is what you want. So you can dry shake it, and then you can wet shake it with the wet ingredients, and then add the ice. You can add the ice with the wet ingredients if you want to skip a step. But the way to get it really frothy is dry shake with the egg white, then add the wet ingredients, then add the ice. Okay, so what is in it? So it's Broker's gin, right? That really high-end acclaimed gin from England. Blood orange puree, lemon juice, demerara.
More so it's a nice bit of broth.
And that is all. Not too complicated, but the shake adds time to the build, so it does take a little extra time.
And the egg white kind of.
What's that?
The egg white kind of got out of it.
Yeah. We serve it in a coupe glass. Completely strained, so no ice. We usually garnish it with a dried candied blood orange on top, a wheel of it, and it floats on top of the foam. But that takes a long time to prep. It takes a day or so we don't have those yet. And then we also put a rosemary sprig over it. Now, it's important that you put something that's really aromatic, like a rosemary sprig. It counteracts any smell from the egg white that might turn somebody off. Or you can put some bitters, some aromatic bitters on there to counteract it, anything that's really fragrant. So yeah, that's kind of our, let's say, our craftiest cocktail we have on the regular menu. Yes, so espresso martinis, like around the country, are just absolutely taking off as well. Very popular now. So we do ours, so it's called a work of art. It's a name on it. We use Van Gogh, as I mentioned earlier, the Dutch chocolate, so it has a little chocolate taste to it. We add Kahlua. You need a little more Kahlua.
Oh no, it's just like stuck. She should have.
Kahlua, and then 2 shots of espresso.
2 shots.
A lot of espresso. A lot of the times, restaurants, bars, they'll add simple syrup in there. That's the standard recipe, is to put simple syrup with the vodka and espresso and Kahlua. But we decided against that because of that Dutch chocolate has a little sweetness to it. So we didn't want to make it too sweet. Some people like to put Baileys in it too, make it a little bit more creamy. That's totally fine. Good spin on it. Now with this foam that's going to be on top from the espresso, we can use our printer over here to print a design. I usually like to put like an artistic design on top of it. Sarah likes to put like what, like phrases?
So cute. Depends on who's ordering it.
Yeah, and then we'll garnish it with some espresso beans as well. I've been told there was this guy that came in.
The espresso martini rater?
Yeah, there's the espresso martini rater. He said it was one of the best ones he's had. So.
He has like an Instagram that was like literally, it was only rating espresso martinis.
Yeah.
And he said ours was the best.
Yeah. Did he say the best or one of the best?
Maybe he did say one of the best. I mean, once you get like a really, just some people just don't know how to pull the espresso. I think that's the biggest problem. We don't have
Yeah.
to pull ours.
We make ours mostly fresh, the espresso, on the spot. We get an order, we run to the espresso machine and make it. On busier nights, we do have to batch it, so we'll preemptively do 30, 40 espresso shots, something like that, just so we can make a lot of cocktails.
So you guys want to come over, you can't see at the end, what our little machine can do. Do ripple, it's super neat.
Wait, do CPR
So this is the steamer.
So steamer, yeah. So steamer is unique to the club. It's a drink that's been around since pretty much the start of the club in the late 80s. One of the members, no longer a member here, I think a year ago, 2 years ago maybe, Marty Haney, was his name. Came up with it. So it's just a combination of some of the most popular coffee type liqueurs. So we do Bailey's, Kahlua, and Frangelico. Frangelico is a almond liqueur, so that's a hint of like hazelnut in there. And top it off with milk. So it's 3/4 of each of those ingredients. It's not a crazy strong drink, but it's a nice nightcap for people. We usually get a lot of these orders after 8 o'clock, maybe 7 o'clock. They'll start. So we froth it with all the ingredients in it. Like you do with a latte. The goal is to get the foam all the way to the top, have the least amount of air in the bubbles, and have it not be too hot. You don't want to burn the milk, nor do you want to burn the member's hand on the glass. But it is hot, and so do warn them it is hot. Just let them know.
You can feel the boxes.
We top it with some cinnamon on top. Sarah's excellent at making it. Makes it perfect.
So yeah, it's like literally, you want it to, because they're going to be maybe like a little more intoxicated at the end of the night or whatever. They're going to grab the glass not thinking about it and be like, oh man. But we're going to try, like I'm going to try my hardest to get all of the bartenders to kind of be able to mimic this so that you can literally just hold on to the glass, keep your hands warm at the end of the night. So, Rick, did you want to try that? This will definitely be a longer straw kind of deal, just because of all the foam down there at top. No, you can also just do that.
Like I can do that.
What are you doing with all these different drinks?
Specials every once in a while. Fridays the cool down, obviously, but even just other nights, other dining nights. I'm sure Philip and Sarah and everybody, the whole team will come up with different things. It's kind of our favorite part of bartending is getting creative with that. So we put a lot of thought into it, a lot of energy, a lot of excitement when we come up with these drinks. So do try your best to promote them for us, especially if you're going to a table. It's good for the front end of service to mention the drinks before you have to get into that, all the different food specials that he puts out. We very much would appreciate it. I'm sure they'll appreciate you guys helping them out.
We'll honestly put even more like a whole day's like work into it, or a couple of hours, and we really are proud of it, and it's so easy for it to get lost within all the specials, because I know we have so many specials that happen. So my way that I found like that it would work best, because I've done both serving and bartending, while you're pouring the drinks, like right as you're sitting them, just be like, hey, and like just to let you know, today we do have a drink special. It's gonna be this, this, and this. I'll let you guys look at the drink menu, and then I'll be back to take your order. But like, instead of pounding them with that, and then the appetizers, and then the specials, and then the entrees, try and just like segregate it a little, and I promise you'll have happy bartenders.
And even more, oftentimes more than a day. I've done a drink where I like made little
it's like a
boards
week,
month,
yeah.
A month. Like put a lot of work into it. So. Okay. All right. So the last thing I wanted to mention was just about the test that you'll have in the coming weeks. So yeah, you have your study guide in front of you. We'll update that even further than it was. Mark asked me to add some things into it from his talk as well. So that should be out to you hopefully in the next week or so before you guys do take the test. What you'll need to know on there is not every single one of, say, the calls in the top shelf, but you need to know a couple from each category. Okay, we're going to ask for 3 of each category. All right, so that's kind of the most memorization is the wines and the liquors, is to know all the different categories and know several of them. Not the whole list, you know, that's a lot to memorize. You'll learn that throughout the following weeks and such. But yeah, make sure you know 3.
I'd say, yeah, just like go for the well, the call, and then 2 of like the premiums. You know, trying to maybe not mention the well as much, maybe just go straight to a call or a premium. It's gonna boost up your checks a little more, possibly more a little bit more gratuity, just like little stuff like that you can think about. So that's kind of what I used to do. I would be like, okay, well the well is this, a call, maybe I'll do 2 calls and 2 premiums that I know for sure, just to upsell.
When you're going into service.
Yeah.
Also for the test, you're going to need to know the ingredients for the craft cocktails. You don't need to know the ounces, but you need to know what goes in them.
All of them?
Yes, all of them.
So we're gonna get a different like FD exam at some point.
Yes. Yep. Oh, is that one full? Let me see that.
I'm sure we can get you one on like Sunday or something, or whenever you come in next. If you want another empty one, we can get it for you for sure.
Did they put this in your sheets?
Yes.
Packets? Okay.
They told them to fill it out as we went along.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there could be some little updates to that test too, as well. That one was made last year, so it could even be a year older. I'm not sure. Okay. All right. Any questions before we wrap up here? No. Okay. Great. Well, thanks for listening. My pleasure coming out. Hope you enjoyed tasting the drinks and the beers and such. All right.